We mentioned the souvenir. This is the obvious sort of starting point, and this project has connections with those films in some way, or do you prefer to keep them as entirely separate objects because the character names are the same? We have Tilda. Is this something that you see them as a continuum, or it's how do you see these films? What's the word? Tessellating, as they would say in the souvenir.
It's not really that clear. And it wasn't that clear to me when I was writing this, but I couldn't get away from Rosalind in the souvenir, because those of you who saw the souvenir, Tilda was playing this character, the mother of Julie, and somehow the older Rosalind, or she became older Rosalind in The Eternal Daughter, and I didn't want this to be a third part, because it's not that connected in a way, but the characters definitely come across from those films, and I think all my films actually are somehow connected. I think more and more as time goes by, I just see the films as kind of one film in a way, and because I don't watch them again afterwards, I can't separate them in my mind.
And I want to ask about the Welsh aspects of the film, because I didn't know. I think I read some reviews where they said Tilda Swinton wanders a Scottish hotel, and I'm like, it's clearly Wales. And in the United Kingdom, Wales has a sort of slightly poetic or misty, mysterious aspect to it. Did you deliberately choose to set the film in Wales, or was it because the location happened to be in Wales?
Well, I think it was the house, actually, that called. I think with all my films, it often starts with a place, and it was the house, which used to be a private house and is now a wedding venue. And because we made the film during the pandemic, in fact, when I was location hunting, I was just location hunting at home on Google, and I came across the image of this place in Wales, and it just immediately, I thought it was such an interesting shape, and had such an interesting history as well. And no one had used it as a film location before, so that attracted me. It didn't have any associations with other films. Couldn't understand why, actually, because it's an extraordinary place. So, and then as soon as we were able to travel a little bit, I took a train to go and see the house with my production designer, and we were completely in love with it. And but the Welshness of it, it was also fortunate because Wales had different lockdowns from England. So we were able to film when England was locked down and Wales wasn't. So, yeah.
And before, to the audience, obviously Tilda's performances are what we expect from Tilda. I mean, we expect her to dazzle us. In this film, I also was much impressed by Sophia Carley-Davis, who plays the receptionist. And I know that in the past you've often found people in areas and people who haven't acted a great deal before. Could you tell us how you found this rather remarkable young lady?
Yeah, because she hadn't done anything before, not on film anyway. And I wanted to find someone that was local to the place where we were filming. And she was found actually by my casting director. I've recently worked with a casting director early on, I think. I mean, I love casting myself. So anyway, she helped find Carly, and Carly did a conversation with my casting director on video. And she was talking about ghosts and her experiences of the supernatural. And she said some really interesting things and had a vulnerability about her that was really interesting. And she's so very unlike the character she plays. But just to say about Tilda, it's interesting because I think Tilda is doing something unlike anything she's done in other films, actually. I think she's much more herself in many ways. And even though she's playing these two characters, it's very stripped down. So she's not playing a character. And in fact, when Tilda and I talk about the film, we talk about what she does is not really a performance. It's something much more raw than that. So it feels like it's not Tilda as usual. It's Tilda doing something very special.
I mean, I meant that we're used to her surprising us and dazzling us. But when you wrote it, did you write it knowing Tilda was going to play both parts, or was that also a pandemic situation?
It's complicated because I first started writing this story in 2008. And in fact, it was set in Norfolk then, not to complicate matters. But and at that point, Tilda was as I saw it, I mean, I saw Tilda as a friend, but I didn't. It felt to me that she was maybe too big a star to be in this film that I was planning. And I then made Archipelago, my second film, which was very different. I cast that in a different way. But Tilda didn't really come to mind until she played Rosalind in The Souvenirs. And then it's strange because we worked together in 1986. Actually, 1985 for the first time. The very first thing she did on film, we did together. And then there was like 30 years of not working together. And then this and The Souvenirs.
That was, of course, the short film Caprice, which is now finally kind of around. As I say, we don't have a huge amount of time, but if people are burning with a question... yes, the first hand I see is here. Microphone is coming to you. Thank you.
Hello. I apologize if I'm talking some nonsense, but I like to make this sort of associations. So I got the impression that the hotel was some sort of liminal space, and there was this relation between the daughter and the mother. And I have to say that I had to think of two movies. Yeah, one is Solaris by Andrei Tarkovsky, because of the relation between the son and the father, and also the fact that the space is also a little bit weird, like in the science fiction movie, and also a space odyssey, when the astronaut sees himself old in this hotel room. Yeah, so I was wondering if these movies could have been somehow inspirations, or is it just a random connection, or if you see something to it?
I mean, obviously, I love those connections, and it's interesting because I've been thinking about Solaris because I'm starting to have a few ideas for another film, and I have the urge to watch it again because I didn't watch it before making this. And also, 2001 Space Odyssey, strangely, I saw it for the first time after I made this. I'd never seen it before in my life. It's one of those films that I was waiting for the right place to see it, because I had to see it on a big screen, of course, and it was never playing in a good enough place. And I eventually saw it at the National Film Theatre in London, and I was absolutely blown away. But it was after making this. And actually, somebody else has made that connection before. But anyway, I'm deeply flattered by the connection, and in a strange way, they inspire me for the next film.
Because the Kubrick film that I was thinking was The Shining, which is filmed in Britain in a big hotel, and that was the thing that came to me. But of course, now that he said it, 2001 is also.
But I think there's something about Hal in 2001. There is a connection. Yeah.
Hello. I wanted to ask about the books in the film, because you saw Tilda's character reading a lot of books, but you couldn't actually make out what they were. And are we allowed to know, or is it a secret?
No. One of the books is by a psychotherapist called Marion Milner, who was a really interesting woman who lived her 90s and wrote and was very connected to Winnicott. I don't know how many of you are in the sort of psychology world, but I had discovered Marion Milner a few years ago, and I have a friend, in fact, who's planning to make a film about her. She was really an incredible woman who wrote about painting and creativity in a really interesting way. So anyway, seek her out. And
there was a Penguin modern classic, I think. There was a Green Penguin.
Yes, there's a book, or rather a book of short stories by Rudyard Kipling, and one of the stories is called They. And They was a book, actually, this isn't name dropping, this is true, was given to me by Martin Scorsese, because he's very into British ghost stories. And he said, you must read, because I was asking him when I was writing this for ideas of what to read, what ghost stories to read. And he said, you must read Kipling's They. And I read it, and it was the first time that I'd been moved to tears by a ghost story. And there was something about the emotional reaction of this story, and also the sort of spookiness. And I thought, with The Eternal Daughter, maybe it can be actually, in the end, more about an emotional response.
In that one, we see the page. We see the first page of the story.
Yeah.
And Kipling, I think I'm right in saying Kipling's son died quite young.
It was his daughter as a child.
Daughter, right.
Yeah, and that inspired that story. So there was a lot of grief anyway around that story.
I think we have time for another question. The hand is here. And then we'll go over there.
Thank you. Well, that was a very extraordinary film, I have to say. And I got two questions. First, I kind of felt like in the beginning the scenes that were kind of repetitive. I was wondering if that was like on purpose. I mean, I suppose it was, but if like there was a meaning to that, because it felt like there was something more to it that I probably didn't really grab yet. I'd probably have to see the film a few more times. And the second question was about the daughter, like Tilda as the daughter, because I kind of felt there was a lot of guilt she had that was associated with how she imagined her mother still being there and wanted to like care for her and make a fuss. And I wanted to ask about that as well.
Well, the first question's hard to answer because it's not like I think, I'm going to create a whole lot of scenes that are repetitive, but there's something about the need to get further into something. So maybe repetition is part of that. It's not a conscious thing, so I don't really know what to say.
And when you stay in a hotel day after day, you have routines.
There are things that happen, and then the sort of fears at night. So I'm not sure if that answers anything. But and in terms of the guilt, well, that's easier to answer just because I'm still a very guilty daughter, and my mother's not around anymore. In fact, when I wrote the film and I shot the film, my mother was still alive, and then she died when I was editing it. So she was, in a way, very present through the making of the film. But I was never able to tell her exactly what the film was about because I felt so guilty. So I'm very much like Julie in the film, wrestling with that and wanting her to be happy all the time. And but my mother was very perceptive, and I think she knew more about it. Somehow she divined what the film was about, and she came up with the name of the hotel, which in Welsh it's Moel Famw, which means Mother Mountain. And that was her idea to call the hotel this. So she must have had some understanding of what the film was about.
I think the microphone did go here, and there was a question.
Yeah, another question talking about connections and references. Why Rosebud? Was it part of the wedding venue location before, or did you put it there?
No, it was there already.
Okay. But did you?
I'm not very keen on those clever references necessarily, and there was a room called Rosebud, so it was irresistible to keep it.
Yeah, I understand.
I think we have time we are running out of time because we do have another wonderful film at the Viennale for the audiences, so there is time for one last question. Oh, so yeah, we'll go right at the back, and then we will come to you. So we're going to have exercise for the microphone people.
Just because you get a look at Julie's screen at the end, I was wondering about your drafting process and at what point sort of like what something looks a lot like fiction turns into a script.
Yeah.
When Julie's writing the screenplay,
yes,
it's kind of like Herzog does this. It's not, interior night. It's
no.
mood. So.
And well, actually, what she's writing is what I wrote. So she is writing my screenplay. And I wrote this very consciously as a short ghost story because I thought that's maybe the best jumping off point because I don't like writing in the normal screenplay form. It's more like a piece of prose or a short story. So it looks very much like my script began like that.
And for more about Joanna's scriptwriting process, come tomorrow at 6:00 because the Drehbuch Forum is we're doing Wilberg, Brian and Dunnenberg we're going to be talking exactly about this process.
The process, so yeah.
That's tomorrow. The last question. Thank you. Oh, the microphone is coming to you. Microphone is coming. Here it comes. There it is. Oh.
Could you please precise me the text of Winnicott where you're referring to?
It's you're challenging me there. I've just had COVID. I think I've lost some of my memory. Anyway, it's about not being able to paint. So the book that she's reading, she's very interested in, like I said, creativity and about the difficulties of making personal work. So it's I think the title is something like How Not to Paint.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we are. Go on.
Well, no, I was just going to do one more plug, because where we're going now is the Rote Bar in the Volkstheater, because there's an artist called Marianne Dissar who's doing a piece there that's inspired by The Souvenir, if any of you saw The Souvenir. So anyway, she wanted me to say to you all, if you want to go to the Rote Bar, you're very welcome.
It probably doesn't hold 736 in the Rote Bar, but we can try. We can try, and I think it's great that not only do your films inspire and delight audiences, but they inspire other artists, which I think is the chain that keeps us all going. So it has been terrific to see the film on this wonderful screen. It has been wonderful to have you with us, and I ask the audience, please join me in thanking our guest tonight, the Eternal Daughter, writer-director Joanna Hogg.
Thank you. Real pleasure.